This is Mirabella's kitchen, and today I'm making chicken tikka masala. Cue me almost saying marsala this whole video. If you'd like to cook with me, please check the description below for a list of the ingredients and a shout out to my Patreons. I start by taking a piece of ginger and removing the skin. Removing the skin of ginger is purely preferential. It is totally edible. You can use a knife to peel it, or you can use a spoon. The spoon is definitely safer. I want 1 tablespoon of minced ginger, so I'm cutting that piece of ginger in half, saving half of it for later, and I'm going to add a lot of long cuts into the piece of ginger and then mince it with a rocking motion of the knife. Next, I mince 3 cloves of garlic. I add that garlic into a mixing bowl because we're going to make a chicken marinade. I take 1.5 to 2 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken thighs and I cut them into bite-sized pieces. And safety tip, remember to check for little pieces of bone. Next, I take 2 teaspoons of Garam Masala powder, 1 teaspoon of turmeric powder, 1 teaspoon of ground cumin, 1 teaspoon of chili powder, and 1 teaspoon of coarse kosher salt. I add 2 individual cups of plain Greek yogurt, and I take a wooden spoon and mix everything so all of the ginger, the garlic, the spices, and the yogurt are evenly coating the chicken. I cover it with plastic wrap and set it aside in the fridge for about 30 minutes at least to marinate. Next, I grate the remaining ginger to 1 tablespoon's worth of it. And I also grate 5 cloves of garlic. I find grating garlic with a microplane very inefficient at times. You can also use a cheese grater on the smallest side. I finely dice a large yellow onion. And I finally dice it by adding a lot more cuts than I would normally while dicing an onion. I take a saucepan and heat it right between medium to medium-high heat. And I add 3 tablespoons of canola oil. Once that is hot and shimmering, I add the chicken, and I'm going to cook the chicken in batches. I take the spoon to break up the chicken because the chicken is sticking to each other due to the yogurt. And I cook the chicken for about 3 minutes on each side until it is nice and brown. And then I flip it. I recommend using tongs to flip it. I found trying to flip it with a spoon a little bit difficult, and I was just shoving it against the sides of the pan. Once both sides are brown, we're going to finish cooking the chicken in the sauce. So I remove it from the heat and set it aside for later. In the same saucepan, I melt 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter. And I add the onion in and stir it around, breaking up any bits of fond that are left in the bottom of the saucepan until the onion is soft. It takes about 3 to 5 minutes. Once the onion is soft, I add the grated ginger and the grated garlic and cook that until it is fragrant. That takes about 30 seconds. I'm going to add 1.5 teaspoons of Garam Masala powder, 1.5 teaspoons of ground cumin. It came out to 1 teaspoon of turmeric powder. And 1 teaspoon of ground coriander, and I'm going to dry roast that a bit until it's fragrant. It takes very little time, about 20 seconds or so. Then I add 16 ounces of tomato sauce, and I mix that really well. We're going to cook this for 10 minutes. I add 1/2 cup of water to thin it out initially, and then I use an immersion blender to make it a smoother sauce because I like smoother sauces. Don't forget to add the chili powder. I use 2 teaspoons worth, and 1 teaspoon of coarse kosher salt. Mix that all together and cook that down. After 10 minutes, I add 1.5 cups of heavy cream and 1 tablespoon of dark brown sugar. I mix that all together until it's nice and homogeneous. Next, I return the chicken to the sauce to finish cooking it, and I make sure to add the juices from the chicken. It's going to add a lot of extra flavor. I cook that until it is thick and bubbly. It takes about 10 minutes. I'm cooking basmati rice with this. I cooked it to package directions, so I take a saucepan, add 2 cups of basmati rice into it. I add 3 cups of water. And I add 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter and turn it over high heat and bring it to a boil. I recommend doing the rice when you're done with the chicken. That's when I recommend starting the rice. Once it is boiling, I add a lid and turn it down to low to let it simmer for 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, I turn the heat off and I remove it to a cooler burner to let it steam for 10 minutes, which I find is very beneficial for basmati rice. Once everything is all nice and cooked, I take a few spoonfuls of the basmati rice and a very generous portion of the chicken tikka masala. And I top it with some minced cilantro. And that's chicken tikka masala. This is a very spicy dish. If you don't tolerate spice well, I recommend having all the chili. Thanks for joining me today. I make new videos on cooking every Wednesday. Please support me on Patreon and on Facebook at Mirabella's Kitchen.